Hi, and welcome to Motivate Forward. I'm Craig Stargard. Today, we're going to talk about design thinking. And to help me with that conversation is a good friend of mine, Chris Good. Chris is the CCO of One Workplace and the co-founder of Plus One. The reason I wanted Chris is because Chris regularly travels around the country talking about design thinking, and so I couldn't think of a better person to be part of the conversation. Chris, welcome to Motivate Forward.
Craig, thank you so much for having me. It is so great to see you again. I am excited to be here in this awesome space.
Yeah, this is great. So first of all, tell me a little bit about what you do. What is Plus One, and what is One Workplace?
Sure. So One Workplace is probably one of the world's largest workplace furniture and design companies. We support organizations all around the U.S., and we do work internationally as well, focusing really on the entire interior experience, from interior design to construction to technology to furnishings. And my role there as the Chief Creative Officer is to lead our design organization and to set our approach and our direction for how we want to solve problems for our customers, who are all struggling with pretty incredible challenges related to what the workplace of the future is going to look like, what the learning space of the future is going to look like, what the healthcare environment of the future is going to look like. And a second part of my job there, you mentioned Plus One, is a workplace culture consultancy. And that practice is all about better understanding the employee experience, how workplace culture and how the individual, human experience at work or at school or in a healing environment, how those experiences shape us and what we can do to, I like to say in both of my worlds, shape both the ways and the places that people come together. Something I actually really, really love about what I do is I get to shape the physical environment and then what happens inside of that physical environment. And I love bringing those two worlds together.
So did COVID really kind of turn that on its head?
It changed everything. I mean, it changed the world. And for certain parts of the U.S., certainly where I spend most of my time on the West Coast and in California and in Washington, everything is upside down. I'm spending some time out here, and I'm looking at workplaces where most people have, for the most part, come back to the office. Mm-hmm. And that is not true in big sections of Northern California or in Seattle. Individual people are making very different decisions about what their work experience should look and feel like. And honestly, right now, it's been an entire paradigm shift from where an organization used to set the direction and say, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how you show up at work. And right now, employees are telling that story back to organizations and essentially saying, I know you'd like us to come back, but we're not coming. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I suppose part of my job when I work with organizations is try to figure that out. But it's an upside down world right now. I don't think it's going to stay this way forever. I think we're going to find ourselves, these pendulums are swinging. And I think we'll find a place between those two worlds a little bit. But COVID has definitely changed the world and changed my world dramatically.
Well, that's interesting. And I think that's going to lead right into design thinking, because I think I want to come back to that with design thinking. But first, I want you to, because I know you travel the country. I know you've given seminars at Stanford. You've been to the White House, and you regularly give talks on design thinking. And you also were very instrumental at Radford University in helping develop an MFA. And that was kind of before it really took off around the country. So, and my podcast that I've had in the past, especially in my 3-part series, I talk about how design thinking can actually help you be a better thinker, a more critical thinker. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. And it's interesting to talk about design thinking, because I think in some ways it's even kind of silly that there's a term for it, because you have this kind of buzzword that says, you take these two things, design and thinking, you stick them together, but they've always been stuck together. And the best critical thinking has always been design thinking. We're just now giving a name to it because I think for so long we've divested critical thinking from the design process. And by that, I just mean creative exploration, thinking empathically and iteratively, trying things, uncovering things, understanding who it is you're solving for.
Right.
And we're, a few years ago, it became back in sort of the popular zeitgeist to start bringing those two things back together again. And I'm so glad that happened. And in all honesty, Craig, when I discovered that for myself, 10, 15 years ago, it changed my life. It changed my world.
So everybody understands, what is design thinking?
I suppose that at the simplest way of describing it, it's truly just approaching problems from a way that considers the people you're solving for and their experience. Who are those human beings that we're solving this problem for? Empathically understanding them, and then iterating and trying lots of things to explore and be very messy in our process and take from those moments of learnings little bits of insight that might shape our direction. It's not a linear A plus B equals C kind of path. It's, I'm going to go on this journey. I'm going to uncover what happens. And through this process, I'm going to use my own intuition as a human being to discern what we might try, and then try it and iterate it and prototype it and try it again.
Well, I got to tell you, I've always been a solution-based thinker, but it really didn't
This
culminate.
is the opposite of being a solutions-based thinker, because if you're focused on the solution, you're only going to drive to that solution.
Correct.
And this way of thinking is, I don't know what the solution is going to be. I understand deeply what the problem is, and I'm going to explore and diverge and find many, many, many paths I can follow. And those paths might take me to a solution that no one's ever thought of before, because we're separating getting to the end goal from the process of getting to the end goal.
Well, I think what really changed my way of thinking was when we were working on we had to do that case study for when we was working on the MFA at Radford, and I was part of the team that you led at the school, and for that entire month we went through. I got to tell you, that absolutely changed the way that I think about how to solve problems.
Me too, my friend.
It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Before that process, or maybe a little bit before that, but I had a fairly successful career as a designer, but I was really struggling in my ability to make impact, and honestly, in my ability to create meaningful solutions. I had become very self-critical of myself and of my work. And now that I look back, actually, when I sometimes speak to students, I tell them that I was a shit designer, because the work that I was producing wasn't actually for the people I was trying to solve for. I was creating pretty buildings and beautiful solutions and gorgeous spaces that made me happy, that I was interested in creating. It was a very much self-gratification process. My career as an interior designer was creating stuff that I thought was interesting or beautiful or solved the problem the way I wanted to solve it. And the work wasn't good. And this methodology, this way of thinking, it changed everything for me, because I realized from that moment on, my job wasn't to create things that I thought were beautiful or that solved problems the way I thought they should be solved. It was to solve them for the people who live and work and heal and learn inside of them. And it changed everything. My world turned upside down. These two moments, COVID and finding design thinking, the two things that have shaped my life the most, other than my family. And I'd be careful how I say this. I'm so glad I found them the way I found them. I obviously didn't want COVID to happen.
Right.
But the way it did, and the way it created opportunity for me to learn for myself and to better shape experiences for others, I'm glad that I was able to use that moment in a positive way.
Yeah, I find that when I work with people or companies, that design thinking is always part of how I go about working with them.
Yeah.
And so I just find it fascinating, and I love to, as Radford says, I'm their number one recruiter for the MFA program because I just totally believe in it so much. And I know you go around and talk. And you tell me about like the seminars. Like, what do you do? Like when you hold a seminar or a workshop, what do you do to kind of teach design thinking?
I don't think you can teach it so much as people have to experience it. And so I'd say at the core, those moments that when we bring people together to experience it, it's about having an in-person, a kinetic, tactile experience where you're touching things, experiencing things, meeting people, learning stories about the people we're trying to solve problems for. And we take people through that actual process. They do it themselves. These are active workshops where it's not a seminar, it's not a lecture, it's not a training. We might tell stories to inspire people to think differently, but the most surefire way to help someone think differently is to actually have them experience something in the real world.
Right.
So you send people out into the world to interview others, to ask them to tell stories, bring those stories back, and ask them to solve a problem together. And they come out of that with a practical experience that they can then apply themselves in the future.
Well, I think one of the best we did this one day during the case study is when we did that round robin, and I love that because when I go in and work, it's because when I work with people or a group, and I show them that I'm not attacking you, I'm just
attacking the idea.
I'm attacking the idea and changing the idea. And so that alone is really, really powerful. So can you speak to what it means? Like failing is part of this.
Of course.
I mean, failing, you have to, in order to make something better, you got to go through the process of finding out why something won't work.
I mean, if I take this back to the story I told a little while ago, coming to a realization that truly solving problems isn't solving them for yourself. It isn't about glorifying your own ideas. It's about actually truly finding a path to solving the problem. And the path to that end solution is full of potholes and full of wrong turns, and it's full of errors. And we can make those errors at a really expensive time in the process after we've decided that's what we're going to do. Or we can make those mistakes and those failures early in the process when we are just exploring and thinking and learning. And through activities like role play or prototyping or that round robin activity that you and I talked about, you give people a chance to do that on their own. In that particular activity, you're essentially asking people to generate an idea and then ask others to poke holes into it, which it's really easy for us as human beings to find faults in other people's ideas. So that goes great. Like, it's not going to work because this sucks, and that's not going to work, and that's terrible.
Just like human nature.
We do it all the time, and that's real natural. And it's hurtful if we think the attack's on us. But in this instance, we're going to attack the idea that's been generated, and to make it feel fair, you'll do it and I'll do it, and we'll do it for each other. But more importantly, you don't stop there.
Right.
Because all those things can be overcome.
Exactly.
And then everybody takes a chance to make it better.
It was interesting because when we worked with the teachers, at first, they were all up in arms. They were just like, then once...
this is my idea.
Right. But then once we made them understand, or actually you made them understand, no, we're not attacking each other. We're just attacking. And it was interesting because, I don't know if you remember or not, but at the end of that day, and even at the end of this entire process, they asked to keep all of the notes because they themselves came up with, you know what, we could apply this to everything we do. Can we keep your notes? And you were like, absolutely. So these are
your thoughts.
Right. So that was actually teaching this group how to use design thinking to solve their issues, which I thought was just fascinating.
And my wife's a teacher, and so I knew pretty intimately the world of public school education. And it's pretty much a world where all day long, as an educator, you're being told what you can't do. And there's being barriers put in front of you, and there's limitations being put in front of you. Educators are expected to operate in a box. And honestly, today, politically, that box is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And helping people in that world suddenly see that even within that rapidly shrinking box, they can make change and have a positive influence and not accept the world as it is was a really powerful moment. And I'm really proud of that work we did together. It was awesome, Craig.
It was great. Now, let me ask you, how do you see design thinking being part, let's equate it back to your personal brand. So when I talk about building your personal brand, and when you go through my evaluation sheet, and I ask you questions about far as, are you a critical thinker? How do you think? Do you think that being able to develop those type of skills is going to help you build your personal brand better?
I can't see how it wouldn't. It's interesting. I would love for everyone I meet, to adopt a more open mindset, a mindset that doesn't accept the world as it is, challenges that world every single day, and sees that even when there's an obstacle in front of you, there's always a path to get around it, get over it, turn the obstacle to your favor. I don't know that most of us go through the world with that viewpoint. We see those obstacles as things that block our way, and we turn around and go the other direction. And for someone's personal brand to be one that says, I see the world as something I can shape every single day, I can't imagine anything being more valuable for an organization who wants to hire that person, or for a community that wants to engage that person. Those are the kinds of people we want to spend time with. The ones who see the world as something they can have a positive influence on.
Right. So they're looking at more of a positive, like when you look at a problem, instead of looking at a problem as a problem,
it's an opportunity.
Look at it, it's an opportunity
Absolutely.
to learn something, solve something, make something better. There are opportunities, because when you look at problems as opportunities, your mind opens up and it can creatively solve it. And using design thinking will absolutely help you really solve it. Where if you look at it as a problem, then you just shut down and you can't solve it.
Craig, you and I are going to have to start a personal mission. Our job is to help this world adopt that mindset more often. Because
I'm trying.
The people who are driving the ship have not adopted that belief system today.
Yeah,
So
it is a shame.
So how do you and I
How do
make
we
this
do
happen?
that?
Is this where this starts? Right here?
Maybe.
All right.
Maybe.
Crusade starts now.
Okay, so let's go back now. How does design thinking play into +1 in OWP? With what's going on and what you're trying to do for is getting people back to the office and all, how does that play? How do you use that?
It's funny you say that, because the whole reason I even found my way to One Workplace is because of this way of thinking. You had mentioned Stanford earlier, and this is a funny story, but in my interview process with the gentleman who I was interviewing with, an executive in our organization named Trevor Krogan, who's become one of my dearest friends. I hope you're seeing this, Trevor. We had like a really simple interview session, and he had told me a little bit about the organization. I was really very, very intrigued, but our time was over. I had flown home, and that very week, I get a phone call from him. He's like, "Hey, I loved meeting you. Would you mind getting back on a plane?" I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Come back to California. I want to spend 3-4 days with you at the D School. We're going to do a workshop with the guys there and try some things."
I remember that.
I'm making the plane reservations while we're talking. Like, let's go. I flew back, had the most amazing time. And, that moment with the Stanford D School and the work that I was already doing with design thinking became the core of what I brought into that organization, which was this higher level way of thinking about solving problems.
Right.
One Workplace at the core of the business is what most people would have recognized at the time as a fairly traditional furniture dealer. And they were an organization who wanted to break out of that mold. They were already trying, and they were expanding their business in a lot of different ways. And they had already discovered that they were being asked to solve much bigger problems than to just deliver and implement projects. And I sort of joined the organization at probably just the right time, because I was able to bring this approach, this mindset to that organization, spread it through the organization. And now, that organization has grown threefold since I joined. And the entire mindset of the organization now sees itself as a very strategic organization that solves really big problems with many, many tools, from construction to technology to furnishings to interior design to workplace culture consulting. All of these things are tied to this bigger way of thinking about solving many, many problems. They already had that in the core of the company, but they didn't necessarily have a tool to sort of drive it. And I know that when I first joined, that way of thinking grew on really fast. And now we've got a whole amazing team of people who all think that way in design and in sales and in every different part of the organization. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I remember when you first went out there, and I've been watching you as you've climbed out there and changed that culture. And you've done an awesome job.
I wouldn't go so far as to say I've changed that culture, but I think I was lucky enough to be a part of a culture that was changing. And for the piece that I played, I think it was a positive component, in design thinking as an approach definitely played a role.
So, and I think that's amazing. And how are you using that for as your plus one with helping get people back
Probably
into the
at
office?
the root. I mean, as a consultant, your job is to understand the organization that you're trying to help, and to offer pathways to solve problems that they haven't been able to figure out for themselves. And so the root of design thinking is coming in, deeply understanding who it is you're solving for. There's going through an incredibly intimate's a great word for that, very intimate discovery process. And then hand in hand, identifying what might we do to help address whatever the issue is that we're trying to address. Maybe it is trying to figure out how to better understand what hybrid work looks like for an organization, or in some cases, what becoming a remote-only organization is. We're working with someone now that their entire employee base reported to a single headquarters primarily, and when the pandemic happened, all those people dispersed across the country. They had employees in a handful of states before the pandemic. They have employees in almost 35 states now. And they are considering closing their entire headquarters and making the entire organization remote. And
Wow.
what does that do to the culture of the organization, the relationships they've built, the connections that they have, to be onboarded as a new employee, to feel recognized for someone who never sees someone else? How do you foster an environment that can still be supportive in that world? It can be done, but it's very, very different than in the world where we see each other every day.
Okay, let's change subjects.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so
Let's liven it up a little bit, Mr. Stargart.
so normally I reach out to you when I'm looking for brain food or something cool or something to get me going. So what have you read lately?
That's such a great question. I actually just picked up a book that I haven't started yet, but it's by Vivek Murthy, who is U.S. Surgeon General. And I guess now twice, because he was before the Trump administration, and then now he's come back again during the Biden administration. And he wrote this awesome book. I'm forgetting the exact title. I think it might be just Framed Together, and then there's a subtitle underneath that I'm forgetting. But the entire book is written about something that's not an uplifting topic. It's the epidemic of loneliness that is happening within the United States.
Oh,
and
wow.
he started that conversation long before the pandemic happened. This was already happening in the United States, that as a society we were growing, our social bonds are growing apart and less connected. And at the workplace in particular, people are becoming more and more personally siloed and not building the bonds that allow us to feel a sense of recognition and reward and connection to the other people that we spend time with. The pandemic just threw that all in the dumpster fire, and it's bottomed out, and it's truly a health concern for the entire organization. So I started reading, or I picked up the book to start reading it because I'm super interested in what we might be able to do as a society and as organizations to bring people back together again, even if we don't have the chance to do what you and I are doing right here,
Right.
which is spending actual time together. Because, man, I know you flew out to come see me a few weeks ago in San Francisco, and I hadn't seen you probably in 2 years. And
Longer than that.
man, it was the best time. And, you know, you just kind of feel it like right in here
Right.
when you're with somebody, especially someone you care about and you love and who's super smart and tells you awesome stories and gets your creative juices going.
Right.
And, you know, for most of us, we haven't had that in so long. I hadn't had that in so long. And it's just so incredibly meaningful. So
Yeah, and I think just being around other people and being able to having that like-mindedness and having those conversations is just so important. Now, I don't know about you, but I typically have 2 or 3 different type books going at all times. You know, right?
I've got stacks that I've read the first couple of pages. That's like,
Well, I've got stacks that I need to read because I just keep ordering them.
Correct.
But I try to like diversify when I'm reading because I don't want to just read one thing.
Sure.
So, do you do that?
You know, I try, but I don't make enough time to read, honestly.
But you listen to book on tapes, though.
I do, and listening's an interesting word because I'd suppose inspiration for me comes a lot of places. Certainly reading, spending time with other people. I'm really, really big into the inspirational power of music. I feel super, super lucky that my daughter and I both share a passion for music. In fact, I've even passed on a little bit of a love of playing music. And so we get to play, you know, guitar and bass and drums together sometimes. Like the highlights of my life are spending time with her, having those moments.
Now, can she play an instrument?
She can. She's a really great bass player. She's an improving guitar player.
Because I know you're pretty good at playing. You're pretty prolific.
She's pretty awesome. And, you know, to have somebody that you can kind of sit down and just jam with, and it's your daughter, and to like the same kind of music and have her turn me on to new music I've never seen before or heard before is awesome. We were joking earlier about my weekend because someone was scoping out my Instagram, and he's like, "Man, where have you been like all last weekend?" And she and I went to a 3-day music festival in San Francisco called Outside Lands, which is just freaking amazing. 250,000 people crammed in the Golden Gate Park with like 5 different stages, all going at the same time. Incredible bands, most of which I'd never heard of before she turned me on to them. And then you see the set list come out and it's like, oh my God, we have to go see Faye Webster. Oh my God, we got to see Phoebe Bitters. Oh my God, we got to see the Beths. We got to see the Lindas. Like, we're going 3-day passes. We're going to kill this thing. And you just leave those moments with so much energy. And honestly, so much faith in humanity again, that 250,000 people could come together, have an amazing time. Everybody was chill. Now, granted, the event was top-notch run. I mean, everything ran like clockwork.
Right.
So there's nothing to get angry about. But everybody was chill, great people, awesome music. And it's like, I just left that place with so much energy. Of course, I also left completely exhausted, as did my daughter. But just an awesome time together and awesome way to find inspiration.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I heard the other day the name of a band, and I just thought it was awesome. It was called the Innocent Criminals.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, what?
That could probably describe us, Craig. Actually, it really probably could. I won't tell any more about that. That would make the case.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much. So, all right. So, what have you been doing fun? What's, I know you took your daughter out. I mean, you're so active and you have so many things that you're good at. I mean, have you done any more art? Have you done any more drawing and painting? I mean, you're just.
I did a little bit a couple years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, because I was like, what am I going to do with all this time? Of course, I realized very quickly all that time gets just sucked up in work and other things. But did a little bit of painting early on, got into digital painting, something I had never really gotten much into, which was a really cool experience. I'm getting like the eyes.
Yeah, like on the computer, like
absolutely.
using the
So
pen
with a stylus.
and-
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
yeah.
So trying
I've
a
seen
medium.
some of those. They're just amazing.
Yeah, a medium I'd never tried before. Before I was always into acrylics and oils and graphite and charcoal, and so it was cool trying a new medium. Of course, my daughter, she is like me in every single way.
Did she have or
She like is so much
Artist.
better than me, and so I'm like, wow, you own the digital art because I just can't. Because she's an incredible artist, incredible. And so did a little bit of painting, did a lot of running, a lot of cycling, and now my son's running cross country, which is super cool.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super awesome.
I mean, he shot up like a weed.
Both of my kids are way taller than me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad because I wouldn't wish this height on anybody.
Well, you remember when you were going to do the Ironman France? Because I know you were really into Ironmans there for a while. Remember you did that 50 and 50?
Oh my God, yes.
And then we actually held the show over. They still talk about that show because they've never had so many people at a show.
That may be one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my entire life, but I'm so glad I did it.
I was just amazed at the quality that you were able to produce in such a short period of time. I mean, you whipped that stuff out. I mean, it's just...
Well, I really appreciated all your help sort of orchestrating how we would pull together a show and to give that work a life for your audience's benefit. I had decided that I was going to take my triathlon passion, where I was running Ironman races. What is that? I can't even 142 some odd miles, of swimming, biking, and running.
I can't even imagine.
And take it to Europe and go race in France. And I couldn't afford it, so I was like, man, I've got to raise some money. I got to figure out a way to do that. But I didn't want to just ask for money, so I wanted to do something meaningful. And so I thought, well, what if we did this art project and sell off all the pieces as a way to sort of fund my travel to the race and to have each of the pieces tell a story about the journey. Made a decision a year in advance. Okay, we're going to take 50 weeks. I got 50 weeks until I have to get on a plane and fly to France. Every single week, I'm going to create an original work of art that tells a story of this journey. And we'll find a way to auction it off or sell it off and raise a little bit of money to fund the trip.
I just don't see how you did it.
And for every single week, not only was I doing the 40 hours 60 hours of work at the office, I was doing another 60 hours of training every week, and then would go home every single night and draw for 3 to 4 hours so that I could put out a piece every week. And I didn't sleep for an entire year. I was getting 2 to 3 hours a night for an entire year. And it was one of those moments, Greg, where like you leave your body and you're just, I'm gonna produce for the world. Right? I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna train hard, and I'm gonna create art, and I'm gonna put it out in the world. And if I am surviving at the end of this thing, good for me. And if I'm dead, good for me. And
yeah,
I
but there were some
survived.
incredible pieces.
I survived, but I definitely didn't run or race for probably about a year after that. I was pretty toast.
Oh yeah. But it's an event of a lifetime.
It was incredible. I mean, obviously spending time in Europe was amazing. And riding in France is incredible. I mean, you're riding in the Alps. It's just ridiculous. So hard, but so beautiful and so inspiring. I definitely came back from that trip a changed person. I had seen the limits of what I could do physically, mentally, emotionally, and realized that, in fact, maybe there was more for me in my life, that I could do bigger things. And, it was less than a year from there that I had moved to California because I had made the decision that I liked that kind of challenge.
Mm-hmm. So that actually is what that's kind of your
It's a big part of what put me on that plane to go 3,000 miles to the other side of the country and try something new.
Do you think if you had not have done that, you would have maybe not taken that job?
100%. 100%. It. You have some moments in your life, I think everybody does, that question why you do what you do, how you do what you do, and is there something more? And for me, that was my is there something more moment. And it was like, yes, in fact, there is. And no one's going to give it to me. I have to go out and find it. I have to make it, and I have to bring it into the world. And I was ready for that after that challenge.
But don't you find that mentality is the same? I say mentality, but the same thing that most successful people share with you is why they're successful.
I don't know what successful people share with me.
I don't know, man. You're pretty successful.
I don't. To be proven, I suppose, and I suppose maybe that is something that successful people share is a belief that they've never made it, because that's what challenges them to keep going. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's actually all it is. It's this belief that there's always more. There's always more we can do.
If you can,
and no one's going to give it to you, so you got to go make it happen. And some days you wake up and you don't want to be that person, and other days it's like, let's go, 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 go.
Yeah. Like I love that quote. It says, if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Correct. And there is plenty of failure along that path. Though, I don't know, maybe that's changing, because I could probably wear this to an interview today and actually be more successful than showing up in a suit and tie.
What? I would have to agree with that.
Changing, my friend.
I would have to agree with that, because, I used to always be in a suit and tie. And then I slowly got rid of the tie, and then I slowly got rid of the suit, and then, yeah. And so
the world of professional work has definitely changed, and it's relaxed. I mean, obviously working from home plays a big piece in that. Mm-hmm. I can sit at home in my pajamas all day on a Zoom call, and that's cool. But it's a different workplace than what you and I entered into.
Yeah, I just wondered if maybe I could just show up in like shorts and flip-flops.
I did the other day.
And it's accepted. That's the thing. It's accepted. So, wow.
I suppose a benefit of that is that more and more organizations are caring more about what we contribute and what we deliver, as opposed to the superficial nature of what we look like when we deliver it. And on the flip side, maybe this is something we're losing. A little bit of that formality does ensure that we are always delivering at our best all the time. Sometimes, right? Yeah, when you get dressed and you dress up and you feel good, and you've got the outfit going, and you come into the office. There's a little bit of prep to that ensures that when you get there, you're on.
Yeah, because it's definitely a mindset.
If I roll in my pajamas, I don't know, maybe I'm a little slow to get going.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, but I still have to go back, like when I'm coaching people, far as the human mind, the first thing it uses to
it's all perceptions.
It's all perception.
But it goes
it's
both
what
ways.
You look with,
if I show up in San Francisco in this deal, they're like, one of us.
You're one of us.
If I showed up in a suit and tie, which I did for my first interview.
And they were just like, yeah.
And dude's like, you got to take that tie off. The moment I walked in the door. It's like, dude, you got to take that tie off. I'm like, okay. He's like, and lose the coat. And untuck that shirt. And then we'll walk around and I'll give you a tour. You walk around looking like you're looking, and they're going to think like the IRS has showed up. That was my first interview.
That was during the interview.
Yeah, with Trevor. He's like, dude, I got to help you out. He's like, lose the tie, lose the jacket.
Yeah, but you also...
Let's walk around.
Yeah. Yeah, but...
You got to know who your audience is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to know.
Sure.
Chris, I really appreciate you spending some time with me. I appreciate you coming as far as you did.
I came just for you, Craig.
I don't believe that.
100%. The only reason I'm here.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're very, very welcome.
So you're a dear friend. You are a great. I'm going to call you a colleague because I consider us colleagues.
Thank you.
You know, we both are in the same industry. We both are traveling the same path. So I look forward to catching up with you again. I appreciate all the insight that you gave us on design thinking. And hopefully in the future, I can have you back on for maybe some other topics.
I would love to be back. And before you allow me to leave, I think I'd love to share back a little bit of gratitude for you, my friend, and a little bit for your audience as well. Because there's one thing that when I do get a chance to travel and talk to others, I'm often asked about related to an individual's path, you know, to finding their way to success or the next thing for them. And something I always ask them is if they have a mentor. Is there someone in their life who they look to for advice, for guidance, to challenge them to think differently, to tell it to them straight where they need it told to them straight? And the main reason I ask folks about that is because I know the value of having that mentor personally, myself, in the gentleman who's sitting across from me right now. And I would not be where I am in probably all aspects of my life, personally, with my family, and with work, if not for finding someone like you. So thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I
You're
really
very welcome.
appreciate it. I really do. And that touches me greatly because, you know, I love to help people. I love to see people succeed.
Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. So I look forward to having you again. And make sure that when you have a second, check out all the podcasts on Motivate Forward. That's motivateforward.com. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks.